This work is too mysterious and there is no introduction yet, Ania. Kanban girl. Shame witch. Wow cool, wow cool. Galgame is commonly used in Japanese. Daily focus. Keywords of the novel. Manga. Starting from the adoption of the homeless gua shen without pop-ups, Manga. Starting from the adoption of the homeless gua shen, download the complete text and Manga. Starting from the adoption of the homeless gua shen, read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. People in the rain are watching you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. People in the rain are watching you, host. Yuki Kitagawa, identity. God of prayer, unfinished wish. 0 out of 0, willingness. 0, wish search. 0/1, cooldown countdown 6 days, 5 hours, 24 minutes, turn off the system panel that can only be seen by himself, and Beichuan Yuyu looks up outside the window to see the sudden rainstorm, as well as the gradually dense and spreading rain fog. He tightens his thin coat, and suddenly feels a little melancholy. Just yesterday, he was still drinking happy water in another world, reading light novels, and living a happy and contented life. But as soon as he turned his head, he traveled to this world and inherited a shrine and coffee shop that was on the brink of bankruptcy. Although as a traveler, he also has his own system as a golden finger, the function of this golden finger is somewhat unsatisfactory. His system can collect the prayers of living beings, and after completing their wishes, he can obtain the power of omnipotent wishes. Eternal life, becoming a god, crossing the heavens, and so on, anything you can think of can be achieved through enough power of desire. What the system can only receive is sincere and strong prayers from those with pure souls. Not having a pure heart is not enough, and not having sincere and strong prayers is also not enough. Unfortunately, the world he has traveled through is similar to the development trajectory of his previous life, both in 2023. How many pure souls have he encountered yet? Oni sauce, I'm hungry. The childish voice from behind pulled Beichuanyu back from melancholy to reality. As she turned around, a little girl with bubble gum-like pink hair and dark green pupils, wearing a loose and simple black dress, standing only 1 meter tall, and holding a large bag of peanut snacks, arrived behind him at some point. Anya Foji, but it should be called Anya Kitagawa now. In addition to passively receiving requests from those around him that meet the standards, the system can also perform active searches, but the CD time is slightly longer, with only 1 search every 7 days. Moreover, the searched wishes do not guarantee that you will be able to fulfill them. Fortunately, Beichuanyu had good luck. When he conducted his first search yesterday with a nervous heart, he found Anya. Anya's wish is very simple, it is to have someone adopt her and take her away from the orphanage. Although Beichuanyu is on the brink of bankruptcy, she still has the ability to adopt a little girl, right? Moreover, after completing Anya's wish, he can gain the power of his wish, and with the power of his wish, he can become wealthy. Therefore, he can only say sorry to Lloyd Forger in his heart and then take Anya away. Due to both possessing superpowers, and being able to read about Kitagawa Yoshi without any bad intentions, Anya quickly accepted his brother and became closer to him. What he didn't expect was that although the system transmitted Anya for free, it did not process her identity. As a result, Beichuanyu had no choice but to use up the power of 10 wishes that had just arrived but had not yet been warmed up. So, he used up his once-a-week CD and worked hard for a meal. What exactly is it for? The road to becoming a god is indeed not so easy. Chekhov. Didn't you say you can't have snacks before breakfast? Beichuan walked over and rubbed Anya's head, then picked up a few peanuts from the snack bag and stuffed them into his mouth. Anya lowered her head and glanced at the snack bag that was about to bottom out. She pouted a bit unhappy and muttered, "It's not like Ernie only woke up at this time." Anya's stomach is already hungry. Beichuanyu opened his mouth, unsure of what to say. Saturday, starting at 9:30 a.m., is it very late? But who caused him to have a 6-year-old sister now? He caused trouble on his own. Who is to blame? Isn't it raining today without the sun? Beichuanyu defended himself in a low voice, then quickly changed into clothes and led Anya's small hand down to the first floor. Although there is almost no business in rainstorm days, he still opened the shop door, flipped the wooden sign hanging on the door to the business in progress side, and then walked to the kitchen with the idea that business is a day and business is a day. As for Anya, she had already shouted, "Versatile Superman, concave, man, wow cool," and skillfully ran towards the comic area in the corner with 2 short legs. As a qualified coffee shop, how can one be without comics, magazines, and light novels? Although the absence of the constantly chasing Roy man made Anya a little unhappy, upon seeing the comics on the 3 bookshelves in the corner, Anya felt like he had arrived in heaven. Is it okay to have vegetarian udon noodles and fried eggs for breakfast? Beichuanyu casually asked. Although Anya really wants to eat egg bun rice, it seems like she only has udon noodles at home, right? Beichuanyu was speechless and could only enter the kitchen in frustration. In theory, although the clergy here at Neon may not earn as much as the monks who manage weddings, funerals, weddings, and cemeteries, they can still earn an average of around 3 million yuan per year. As the heir of the shrine, he should be very wealthy, but unfortunately, the shrine's income comes mostly from the land it owns, such as building a parking lot. However, the former owner of this body, who was deceived by someone, converted the land into a coffee shop and used all his savings for it, naturally losing all of it. As of last month, due to the inability to pay her salary, even the last young lady who worked as a witch in their shrine for 7 years had resigned and stopped working. His living expenses and so on are nowhere to be found. In today's vast kitchen, the only things that can be eaten seem to be almost expired udon noodles, a few eggs, and a little wilted vegetables. Of course, there are still many unsold coffee, chocolate powder, and expired milk shops. 20 minutes later, 2 bowls of soy sauce udon noodles with a few bean sprouts and shredded scallions floating around, along with a poached egg, were freshly cooked. Anya, come over for dinner. We'll read the comics later. Oh. I'm coming now. Yuki Kitagawa poured herself another cup of coffee and poured Anya her favorite hot chocolate before carrying the plate to the window seat. Not to mention, while eating the steaming udon noodles, I watched the pouring rainstorm through the window, and I felt quite good. However, you are looking at the rain outside the window, unaware that the person in the rain is also looking at you. After admiring the rain outside the window for a while, Beichuanyu withdrew her gaze, clasped her hands together, and prepared to move. However, just as he picked up his chopsticks, the bell hanging behind the store door suddenly made a crisp sound. A girl wearing a black leather jacket and shorts, with a pair of big boots on her feet, hurriedly pushed open the door and ran in. New books set sale, seeking recommendations, collecting, reading, and monthly tickets. Please everyone. P.S. This book is Zongmang, Hogong Xiang, Glame, Daily Fantasy, which can be referenced from The World Only God Knows, The Marriage of 5 Equal Flowers, and so on. The art style is slightly exaggerated, so it is not advisable to enter with caution. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Swallowing Smoky Makeup Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Swallowing Smoky Makeup Girl. Due to not carrying an umbrella, her body was already soaked by the rain, and her wet dark brown long hair was only sticking to her neck and cheeks. The smoky makeup on her face was also melted away by the rain, and she looked like a ghost. Anya was so scared that she leaned back and almost flipped over the chair. Even Beichuanyu, who considered himself very brave, couldn't help but open his mouth wide. However, judging from the girl's slender waist and straight and slender legs, her body proportions are still quite good. At this moment, the girl also noticed Beichuanyu's reaction, and a blush unconsciously appeared on her pale cheeks, which had been frozen. A hint of embarrassment flashed in her dark and clear eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she still mustered up her courage and said, "May I ask if you are the clerk here?" Beichuan was taken aback for a moment, and then followed her gaze to see the apron she had taken off before she could finish her meal. A sudden expression appeared on her face. "Yes, I am the boss here," said Kitagawa Yoshitaka, standing up and secretly thinking to himself, "If we add another sentence of, 'Welcome, now,' it won't be too late." At this time, the girl said in a voice 10 decibels lower than before, "Could you please give me a cup of coffee? If only, it would be better if there was a bowl of ramen noodles." "Of course. What kind of coffee do you want?" "At present, ramen noodles is just plain soup and udon noodles." Beichuanyu immediately smiled brightly and said. Although normal coffee shops should not sell such food as ramen noodles, Beichuanyu, who is almost too poor to open the pot, can't take care of it at this time. Making money is the king's way. But then, the girl's next sentence instantly froze his smile on his face. "But I don't have money, what? What kind of food are you coming to if you don't have money?" This is Yuki Kitagawa's first reaction. The neon sign in this world is similar to the development trajectory of previous lives, and the settlement methods are still mainly cash and card swiping, with mobile payments not being the mainstream. However, even if you don't have money, you can still transfer money through your phone. As soon as the idea came to her mind, the girl continued, "My phone also broke down due to getting caught in the rain." Is it so coincidental? Kitagawa Yoshitaka couldn't help but turn his head to look at Ania, who possesses mind-reading skills. Ania heard his voice and nodded forcefully, indicating that the girl was not lying. Just then, a sudden gulp sound came from the girl's abdomen. This made the girl's face even more awkward, but at the same time, it also made Beichuanyu sigh secretly and show sympathy for her. Anyway, coffee and udon noodles can spoil if left there for a long time, so, it's okay, just give it to me when you come over next time. Beichuan took a deep breath and showed a gentle smile again. "The coffee is a bit sweet and may not suit your taste, but I haven't touched the udon noodles yet. If you're too hungry, you can eat them first." "Thank you then." The girl may have been too cold and hungry. After bowing at a 90-degree angle, she blushed and walked to the seat that Kitagawa-yo had already given way to. First, she glanced at Kitagawa-yo, who had turned around and walked towards the bar, and then at the cute Anya across the table. Then, she sat down, lifted her hair, picked up chopsticks, and started eating in large gulps. "Poor child, how long has it been since we last had a meal?" Returning to the bar, Beichuanyu glanced at the girl who was wolfing down, and couldn't help but shake his head in his heart. "What kind of coffee do you want to drink?" asked Yuki Kitagawa. "Anything is fine," the girl replied with her cheeks bulging. She actually intended to say cappuccino, but when she spoke, she suddenly remembered that she couldn't even pay, and it was impolite to ask so many things. So she changed her tone. Fortunately, she changed her tune in time, otherwise Beichuanyu would have been embarrassed. The previous barista wasn't him, he was just a store manager with a mascot, Cappuccino. How to adjust it then? As a coffee shop owner, I hardly understand coffee, which is why this coffee shop has been operating poorly. Do you drink milk? I can do it myself. Upon receiving a positive response, Yuki Kitagawa first brought her a dry towel, then quickly mixed a cup of milk coffee according to his own creativity, served it in front of the girl, and then returned to the kitchen to work on his breakfast. However, at that moment, a mechanical reminder suddenly rang in his mind. Power of wish +3, then, in his mind, a shimmering white light ball the size of a ping-pong ball appeared in the virtual shrine. Aha! The power of wishes. Beichuan was taken aback for a moment, then curiously opened the system interface and flipped through the system records. Sure enough, the system record showed that a wish had been received, and the requester was the Smoky makeup girl who had taken a big bite of noodles. It was just that he had turned off the system's prompt earlier, which was why he didn't hear it. As for the prompt sound for obtaining the power of wish, it cannot be turned off. Is your luck so good today? Can any girl you casually meet the standard of spiritual purity? Isn't it that the standard of the system is very high? Beichuan came to the bar with freshly made udon noodles and curiously looked at the girl. And the girl had already finished her noodles and happened to look over at him. Then the girl's gaze quickly shifted away from the face of Wu Dong in his hand, and she secretly glanced at him before awkwardly turning her head back. Shouldn't she? She hasn't had enough to eat such a large serving of wudong noodles yet, has she? How long has it been since she ate? Beichuan eyes couldn't help but show a strange expression. But on second thought, he immediately carried Wu Dong and walked towards the girl. If you're not full, I'll give you this too. But don't worry, there are still quite a few noodles in the store, and it looks like there won't be any more customers in this damn weather today. Then I won't be polite. The girl looked at Beichuan gentle smile, which was like a spring breeze brushing her face. After hesitating for a moment, she picked up her chopsticks again. But after returning to the bar, Yuki Kitagawa's face showed a hint of anticipation. But I gave her another bowl of noodles. Can I gain another share of the power of wish? Time passed by minute by second, and this time it wasn't until the girl finished eating the noodles that Yuki Kitagawa didn't receive any system prompts. Okay, it seems like I overthought it. Beichuan was only disappointed for a moment, but immediately regained his spirits. Because the system rules have already mentioned that there is a CD for everyone to provide the power of wish, so we cannot always catch one person and force them to do so. And ordinary wishes are not enough, they must be strong enough. So wishes like, Ania wants to eat peanuts, Ania wants to read comics, and Ania wants to go out and play, are all unable to gain the power of wishes. 5 minutes later, the girl finished another big bowl of udon noodles and then drank the coffee in her cup in one gulp before finally stopping with satisfaction. Thank you for the hospitality. Noticing that Yoshimasa Kitagawa was standing not far away with a strange expression on her face, the girl immediately noticed her loss of composure and quickly stood up with a red face, exuding a sense of unease all over her body. Then It's still raining heavily outside now. If you're willing, just sit here for a while and wait for the rain to subside before walking. Of course, if you're in a hurry, I also have an umbrella here. As the saying goes, helping others to the end, sending the Buddha to the west, let alone being a pure girl who can provide him with the power of wishes, Kitagawa naturally needs to be more enthusiastic. But why does such a pure-hearted girl wear such cyberpunk and still have smoky makeup? I don't understand, Beichuan couldn't help but mutter to herself. In the end, the girl lowered her head and took the umbrella handed to her by Beichuan with both hands, leaving the coffee shop. And Yuki Kitagawa didn't feel embarrassed to ask for her contact information until she left. Forget it, such a pure-hearted girl should come back to repay the money soon. Ask her for her contact information when the time comes. As a result, the heavy rain lasted for 2 days and 1 night, and finally stopped on Sunday afternoon. A good weekend passed like this, and more importantly, the entire weekend was spent without even a single customer at Kitagawa coffee shop, and even the previously smoked makeup girl did not appear again. I haven't paid back the money or returned the umbrella, which makes Beichuan very suspicious whether there is a problem with the system. Or is it true that the standards for so-called pure souls are not as high as I imagined? The business of the coffee shop is also a big problem. Although the selling point, the witch sister, has already run away because she can't pay her salary, it's outrageous to not even have a customer in 2 days, isn't it? By this calculation, it's better for me to earn more by working outside than opening a store myself. I really can't do that. I have to change the 3 wishes I got from that girl into money first. On Monday morning, on the bench next to the teaching building, Yuki Kitagawa sighed as he looked at the wallet with only 3 Fukuzawa Yuki-chi and a few coins left, and quickly started eating his homemade egg sandwich. Although Sakurai Academy, which he attended, is a public high school. It has produced many celebrities since its establishment. Throughout Tokyo, even including those private aristocratic schools, it can be considered a top-notch institution. So the school itself has been keeping up with those private prestigious schools. One of the school rules is that no one is allowed to eat in the classroom except during lunchtime, so Yuki Kitagawa can only come here to eat. Fortunately, it's a public school. Otherwise, the tuition fee of nearly 2 million yen for private schools alone would have been quite a headache. Even the tuition fee for public schools is not a small amount, so should I be grateful that my predecessor paid the tuition fee for this academic year before exhausting all his savings. Beichuanyu was somewhat lost in thought. At this moment, a slight disturbance suddenly occurred in the direction of the school gate. The students who were originally walking on the shaded walkway in groups of 3 suddenly stopped and turned their heads together to look in the same direction, with a surprised expression on their faces. Seeking recommendation, seeking collection, seeking follow-up reading, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Elf Princess. Or the Elf Queen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Elf Princess. Or the Elf Queen. Wow. Who is that girl? She's too beautiful, isn't she? Aha. Don't you know? Last Thursday's enrollment ceremony, didn't she speak on behalf of the new students on stage? Oh. She's just Ayako, the younger sister of Sister Hiko. I was so far away that day and didn't even see clearly. Oh my goodness. She's even more beautiful than her sister. She's just like an elf. You're right, what kind of once in 1,000 years beautiful girl or once in 4,000 years beautiful girl, compared to Fanio Ayako, is it simply weak and explosive? Even though she and I are both girls, we can't help but be conquered by her beauty. With white, almost translucent, soft skin, clear and arrogant eyes like black crystal, and 3-dimensional, delicate features like carefully carved dolls, Fanny Lianzi is like an anime beautiful girl who breaks through the dimensional wall and comes to the real world. Unparalleled appearance, coupled with a height that is clearly half a head higher than that of ordinary girls, and a graceful figure, is simply the ideal type in the minds of all boys. In addition, her athletic ability and academic performance are also extremely impressive. She achieved first place in the entrance exam with full marks, making her truly a perfect girl at the super high school level. Hey, look over there. Ha! It's Fanio. I didn't expect to meet Fanio early in the morning, so today's luck is too good. Then go say hello, maybe your luck will be even better. Impossible, how dare I? TSK, this is not like you who usually approach beautiful women when you see them. It's just a greeting. Are you afraid? Fool. Fanio's level is not right. It should be said that Fanio's dimension is completely different from those girls. If you have the courage, you can go up and give it a try. Let's forget it then. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of so many people. As Fanio Ayako moved, people kept stopping, avoiding on both sides, and then joined the ranks of paying attention. Even Yuki Kitagawa couldn't help but look over, and the sandwiches in his mouth seemed to taste a little better. At this moment, a tall and exquisitely styled boy suddenly walked towards her. For a moment, everyone was stunned, and then they all showed the excited expressions of the onlookers. Has a warrior finally challenged the noble elf girl? Someone couldn't help but exclaim in shock, then quickly covered their mouth, as if afraid of disturbing the two. However, his concerns were clearly somewhat unnecessary. Both Fanio Ayako and the boy who stepped forward were not affected at all. Good morning, student Fanio. The air after the rain is indeed getting fresher. The boy spoke with a cheerful smile, coupled with his handsome appearance, which immediately made many girls feel good about him. However, Fanio Ayako only glanced at the color of his tie and confirmed that he was a senior. She nodded expressionlessly and continued walking towards the teaching building. I am Ito Jiming, a third-grade classmate of your sister." The boy's smile froze on his face, and he quickly ran 2 steps before stopping in front of Fanio Ayako again. Perhaps she heard that she had something to do with her sister, or that Ito Jiming was blocking in front of her, and she didn't want to take a detour, so she frowned slightly before stopping. "So, then what?" Fanio Ayako finally spoke, her voice as cold as her gaze and expression. Ito Jiming suddenly felt the air around him somewhat oppressed, and unconsciously pulled his tie to slightly relax, as if this was the only way to make his breathing smoother. "I often hear your sister talk about you, and I've been wanting to see you for a long time. If it's convenient, let's have lunch together during lunch break, right?" Ito Jiming said with a self-proclaimed charming smile. Before he could finish speaking, Fanio Ayako coldly interrupted, "No need." As she spoke, Ayako Fanio's gaze shifted downwards and landed on the large gold chain that Ito Chiaki had exposed due to his relaxed collar. A hint of mockery appeared in her eyes unconsciously. Unfortunately, Ito Jiming didn't seem to understand her expression and continued to say, "Can we exchange contact information? I think we can become friends." The mockery in Fanio Ayako's eyes grew stronger, and she said lightly, "I'm sorry, I'm not interested in you and I don't want to be friends with you. If you're just looking for me for this matter, then please stop here. Also." Fanio Ayako deliberately lengthened the ending and glanced at his already stiff smile before continuing, "Besides, I don't think my sister would make friends with people like you, let alone talk to you often about me." After speaking, Fanio Ayako ignored Ito Jiming, who was embarrassed and wanted to find a way to hide, and quickly left. And this scene also caused a group of onlookers who were holding their breath to quietly discuss again. "That's amazing." Even the most popular senior Ito in 3rd grade was rejected, feeling like a lonely elf princess. What kind of fairy princess? With such a strong aura, it should be the fairy queen. But on the other hand, how high are her criteria for choosing a spouse? Is there any boy in our school who can catch her eye? It's probably enough, after all, she's so beautiful. No girl in our school can match her, and it's normal for her to not look up to the boys in our school. That's too bad, isn't it? Stupid, what a pity. She doesn't like anyone, so we should rest assured, otherwise. Stop talking, I already have the footage. If such a noble fairy princess really had a boyfriend, I'm afraid I would die of sadness. That's right, a perfect beauty like Fanio should be like those idol girl groups, not looking for a boyfriend, Fanio Ayako didn't know if she had heard the discussions from everyone behind her, but even if she heard them, her expression wouldn't change much. Even just now, Ito Jiming had already been cleared of her mind like sweeping garbage. She has long been accustomed to being noticed, approached, and discussed. Her brain capacity is limited, and if she had to remember all of these, it would be a waste of brain cells. And those guys who approached her, after being treated like this again, should not come to her again. This is also the experience she has gained over the years from childhood to adulthood. However, just as she arrived at the crossroads in front of the teaching building and was about to continue walking into it, on the right side of the horizontal gravel path, on a bench about 17 or 18 meters away, one was holding a half-eaten egg sandwich in one hand, and the other was resting on the back of the chair, looking at her sideways. The guy with bulging cheeks suddenly caught her attention. Is it him? For eyes met, and Fanio Ayako unconsciously stopped. Her black jewel-like eyes first showed a strong surprise, then seemed to have thought of something, and her expression became somewhat flustered. Then it seemed to have gone through another intense psychological struggle, and finally walked quickly into the teaching building. On the bench, however, Yuki Kitagawa remained expressionless from beginning to end. What's the situation with this guy? Why does he seem to know me? Beichuanyu recalled the change in expression on Fanio Ayako's face just now, and a big question mark popped up on her head. Unfortunately, with the demonstration of Ito Jiming sacrificing himself for the sake of others, he didn't want to die in society. He still gave up the idea of questioning Ayako Tori. Then, he first stuffed the sandwich in his hand into his mouth in a few clicks, and then picked up the expired milk that was originally placed in the shop to make coffee, and gulped it into his mouth. 2 minutes later, after finishing breakfast, Yuki Kitagawa threw the milk box and the packaging paper of the sandwich into the nearby trash can, and then quickly walked towards the teaching building. At the same time, in front of the window in the second-floor corridor, Fanio Ayako quickly quickened her pace and walked into the nearby classroom. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Sudden Campus Melon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Sudden Campus Melon. The azure sky is so clear that it seems like you can see the end of the universe, dotted with white clouds like marshmallows. The gentle wind brushes against your cheeks, taking away the last bit of summer heat. Located on the 3rd floor, in the last row of the classroom of Class 3, Grade 2, there is an exclusive seat for the anime protagonist by the window. As Kitagawa Yoshi spins his pen, he gazes out the window in a daze. As for the teacher's passionate lecture on the podium, who would listen to the normal walkthrough? Have you experienced suffering once before? Do you still want to experience it again? Please. We are systematic men. But is there really no problem with Ania's side? Yuki Kitagawa couldn't help but worry. Although she has learned a lot about the world while it's raining these past few days, and even personally took her on several trips between elementary school and home after the rain stopped, there is still a possibility of getting lost, right? After all, Ania is a fool who can't even read a clock, so after school, should we go over and pick her up? Beichuan couldn't help but sigh, feeling that his previous decision was a bit hasty. Although the power of wish has already arranged Anya's identity and even the school, taking care of a 6-year-old child still requires more effort than he originally expected. Especially, the other party still looks a bit less intelligent. Unfortunately, after summoning Ania to this world, he had already lost the coordinates of the spy house world. Teleporting Ania back would require a lot of willpower, which he could not afford. Speaking of which, high school students should be relatively pure compared to those in society, right? There are so many students in the school, there should be many people who can meet the system standards, right? Should I take an extra walk during the break later? At the moment when the bell rang for the end of class, Yuki Kitagawa finally made up his mind to take a walk in the teaching building during the break, to see if he could collect wishes that met the standards and could be completed, and to gather more power of wishes. The classroom became lively again with the teacher's departure. Although it has been 3 days since the start of school, due to a weekend gap, the topic of discussion is still summer vacation life. After all, many things happened in the past 2 months, and it's not something that can be talked about in just a few days. For example, in the 2 months of summer vacation, Yuki Kitagawa's own industry continued to decline from its original low point to the brink of bankruptcy, which can be said to be a heartache. But just as he walked to the classroom door, a beautiful girl with ear-length short hair, a tall figure, healthy wheat-colored skin, and full of vitality all over her bumped into her. Just like the kind of plot that only happens in comics and light novels. Embrace. Sorry. Before Beichuan could speak first, the girl had already taken a step back, apologized to him with a smile on her hands, and then deftly squeezed past Beichuan again and ran into their classroom. Is this the plateau walking beauty of the neighboring class? Beichuan searched his memory and quickly recognized the identity of the young girl. Takahara Bume, the head of the athletics department, once achieved an astonishing 3rd place in the national competition last year as a first-year newcomer. She is also the most popular beauty in the neighboring class and can be ranked in the top 5 of her grade. My personality is outgoing and lively, with a hint of masculinity. I can chat happily with anyone, but my academic performance seems to be not very good, and I have always been stable at the bottom of the grade. The most important thing is that Takayama Bume seems to be the childhood sweetheart of their class monitor, Hiroshi Kanjima. She always comes to their class during breaks to find Hiroshi Kanjima, and spends more time in their classroom than in her own. However, it is worth mentioning that Hiroshi Shimajima always has a cold and disdainful expression when facing Takashi Bume, with a face that almost reads, "Don't bother me anymore." However, in front of a class of transfer students who only transferred in the second semester of last year, Kiyoshi Shimajima, he looks completely like a licking dog. Is this the legendary childhood sweetheart who was defeated by the heavens? Yuki Kitagawa couldn't help but find it interesting. The footsteps he had originally planned to leave also unconsciously stopped, lazily leaning against the corridor window sill across from the classroom door. His gaze passed through the open back door and looked at Takashi Bume, who had already run to the side of Hiroshi Majima. "Hello, Housey, why didn't you answer my phone call this weekend? I didn't even reply to my text messages." "That might be me reading a book," said Hiroshi Shimajima as he tidied up his textbooks and notes on the desk. Not only did she not even glance at Takahara Bume, but her tone was also quite cold, with a hint of obvious impatience. "Well, let's go home together after school this afternoon. Your literary department shouldn't have any club activities today, right? Our athletics department doesn't have any club activities either. Sorry, I have to attend a tutoring class after school, so you should go home on your own." Hiroshi Majima quickly said without thinking, as if he had already prepared his words to deal with it. However, Takahara Bume seemed to have become accustomed to his attitude and was not discouraged at all. She still smiled with her hands behind her back and said, "What about lunch break? You weren't even there when I came to see you last week. Then don't come looking for me, okay?" Hiroshi Shimajima finally couldn't resist, his tone becoming harder and harder. However, in order to avoid attracting the attention of the rest of the class, he lowered his voice as much as possible and said, "Why don't you go find your friends to eat during lunch break? Don't come to me." Upon hearing the words, the expression on Takashi Bume's face finally changed slightly, and her smile also became somewhat unnatural. However, this was not yet the climax of the scene, whether it was accidental or inevitable, but at that moment, Yoshina Shimizu happened to walk in from the front door of the classroom with a problem set in her arms. When she saw Hiroshi Shimajima and Bume Takayama, she couldn't help but be taken aback and instinctively stopped walking. It has to be said that Chinshue Yonai is indeed very beautiful, with a head of coffee-colored long hair scattered casually on the shoulder. Her appearance is not inferior to that of plateau walking beauty, and her whole body exudes a gentle and intellectual temperament. Most importantly, a pair of completely unreasonable peaks on her chest are really eye-catching. No wonder Hiroshi Shimajima has taken a liking to Shimizumi Yoshina. Kitagawa Yoshina glanced at Shimizumi Yoshina a few times and then looked sympathetically at Takashi Bume. It's hard to say in other aspects, but in terms of chest, Takayama Bume really lost out. On the other hand, Hiroshi Majima and Bume Takahara also noticed Yoshina Shimizu. I never thought about the reaction of Takayama Bume when she saw it. Hiroshi Shimajima changed his face and immediately put on a gentle smile, standing up and briskly walking towards Shimizu Yanaga. "Yuna-sauce, are you looking for me?" "Well, there are a few questions in the homework left by the weekend tutoring class that I don't quite understand. I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up with the progress during the evening tutoring class. So, do you have time during your lunch break, Jian Dao?" Chinshue Yonai looked at Bume Takahara not far away, hesitated for a moment, and then whispered. Upon seeing this scene, Yuki Kitagawa didn't know if she really wanted to ask questions or something else, but he knew that Hiroshi Majima should have been quite receptive to it. Sure enough, after listening to it, Hiroshi Shimajima agreed without even thinking about it. Seeing his enthusiastic expression, he could hardly wait for time to jump to his lunch break. This made the plateau walking behind him beautiful, and the whole person seemed to fall into a shadow. "Then I'll leave first." Chinshue Yonai seemed to feel that the atmosphere was not right, and he left with a dry smile. However, Hiroshi Mishima waited until her figure disappeared before turning around with joy. Then, when he saw Takashi Bume still standing there, he instantly completed the transformation of his face again. Why are you still here? Class is about to begin, so why don't you leave quickly? Hiroshi Shimajima walked back to his seat and said coldly. Can I join you during the lunch break? Plateau Bume rubbed her clothes, looking so humble. Kojima Hiroshi didn't hesitate to refuse her and said, you will disturb me and Yanaga's studies. And we are destined to be different people, so don't waste your time on me. If you don't like it, reject it decisively. From this point of view, Hiroshi Majima's approach cannot be miscalculated. It's just that Takayama Bume has a different identity and is a childhood friend of Hiroshi Majima, which is why it makes people feel sad and sympathetic. I'll go back first. Takahara Bume unconsciously shook her body for a moment, tried hard to squeeze out an ugly smile, turned around, and quickly ran out of the classroom. Later, after eating a full meal, Yuki Kitagawa took out his phone and glanced at the time, then walked back into the classroom and returned to his seat. However, at that moment, the sound of the system's prompt suddenly rang in his mind. New book set sale, seeking recommendations, collecting, and following up. End of this chapter. Give me your bento in chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Give me your bento in chapter 5. Isn't it a wish from Plateau Walking Beauty? Before opening the system, Yudo Kitagawa guessed that the newly received wishes were likely from Bume Takahara, but he guessed the content of the wishes incorrectly. Kamisa, please make me smarter, becoming smarter. What strange wish is this? Shouldn't you pray to the gods to help you recover Hiroshi Kanjima and be with Hiroshi Kanjima? Well, whether it's making Hiroshi Mizushima fall in love with Takayama Bume or making Takayama Bume smarter, it doesn't seem like a simple task to accomplish. The most crucial thing is, how can it be considered as becoming smarter? Is it necessary for Takashima Bume's academic performance to surpass that of Hiroshi Majima? Beichuanyu flipped through the textbook in his hand, feeling a bit difficult, but it was not without hope. In his past life, he was able to pass the entrance exam to a 985 university through his own efforts. In mathematics, physics, and chemistry, he should be enough to make up for the missed courses for Plateau Bume. However, how should we speak up? During lunch break, Yuki Kitagawa sat alone in his seat eating bread. Yes, his lunch is still the same egg sandwich as that in the morning. Between two pieces of bread, there is not even a piece of tomato except eggs. There is only a piece of bad lettuce to supplement some vitamins that the body must get. Not far away, Hiroshi Shimajima was giving a lecture to Yoshina Shimizu while occasionally peeking at Yoshina Shimizu's pair of completely unreasonable peaks. As for the exquisite-looking bento beside him, he didn't even bother to take a closer look. This guy is indeed an LSP who is interested in seeing the color. Beichuanyu finally confirmed this point, and despised Kojima Housey in his heart. Although Plateau Bume lost in terms of chest, it is taller and has longer legs than Clearwater Yanaga. Overall, it is not bad, is it? A couple of people took out their sandwiches and quickly walked out of the classroom through the back door to the hallway. It's still by the window where I used to eat melons. From here, not only can I see the movement in their classroom, but even in the neighboring classroom, I can see it clearly. Don't ask him how he knows, because he has been stealing glances at the girl in the next class from this position more than once in his past life. Okay, I'm going too far. At a glance, Yuki Kitagawa saw Takahara Bume sitting alone in her seat eating bento, with no friends around, looking extremely pitiful. What's the situation? Aren't high-altitude hiking very popular? How could one have lunch alone? Beichuanyu couldn't help but feel a bit curious, but this was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity for him. Hurry up. Hurry up. Hurry up. Beichuanyu secretly started fighting for himself. However, just as he finally mustered the courage to prepare to step forward, the once bustling corridor suddenly became quiet like a street with cold air passing through. What is the situation? Beichuanyu couldn't help but turn her head to look, and then she saw the elf princess Fanio Ayako, who had just had a glance at each other this morning, walking over from the staircase with the usual cold and proud expression. Isn't the first-grade classroom downstairs? If you're looking for her sister, you should go to the 5th floor, right? Beichuan couldn't help but be curious. Fanio Yuzizi is not only the first beauty of the previous school, but also the president of the student union. Regardless of the size of the exam, she has maintained the legendary status of being the top student in the entire grade with full marks for 2 consecutive years. Everyone in her class and school is very clear about it. Are you looking for me? Beichuan suddenly had this idea and couldn't help but laugh. He doesn't know Fanio Ayako and has never had any interaction with her before. How could Fanio Ayako come to find him? However, just then, Fanio Ayako happened to see him, and a hint of joy flashed through her black gemstone-like eyes. Then, she suddenly changed direction and walked towards him quickly. Have you had lunch yet? Fanio Ayako's voice remained as cold as ever, but Beichuan vaguely sensed a hint of tension hidden in her voice. Most importantly, what is the situation? Fanio Ayako, the ideal type in the hearts of all the boys in the school, is actually standing in front of her at this moment, asking if she has had lunch. Is he still dozing off and dreaming in class now? That. I guess I've eaten it before, right? The knife-like gazes around him quickly brought Beichuan back to his senses, and he stuttered a bit. Upon hearing this, Fanio Ayako frowned and said, should it be considered? Shouldn't it be the same egg sandwich as in the morning? How do you know? Fanio Ayako did not answer, but a sympathetic expression couldn't help but appear in her eyes. His parents passed away when he was just born, and his grandfather who had been taking care of him the year before also passed away. Leaving him alone not only to take care of himself but also to take care of his young sister, the business of the coffee shop is still so poor, often without a single customer for the whole day. It's really pitiful. Let's do it then. Fanio Ayako took a deep breath and ignored Beichuan bewildered expression, continuing, as of today, let me have your lunchbox until, this is today's lunchbox. After speaking, Fanio Ayako thrust the lunchbox that had been in her hand into Beichuan hand and said, remember to bring the washed lunchbox over tomorrow. Then, under the gaze of countless people who were shocked, she quickly turned around and left here. Beichuan, whose chin was also about to dislocate, was left standing still. Looking at the exquisite bento box in his hand, his head was filled with question marks. I must not have woken up, have I? As soon as this idea came to mind, a few boys in their class who happened to see this scene suddenly gathered around. Hello, hello. Beichuan. What's the situation? Are you and Fanio classmates? Cheek show. A beautiful woman like Fanio has come to deliver a bento to you in person. It's really enviable. Wow. That's Fanio. How did you do it in Beichuan? Tell me now, dot. Faced with everyone's gossip, Beichuan couldn't help but sweat profusely. He didn't know how he knew Fanio Ayako, and why did Fanio Ayako suddenly come over to deliver him a bento. He himself is also confused, okay. However, when he tried to push through the crowd and ran back to his seat, opening the lunchbox, his previously confused and angry mood suddenly turned into true fragrance. The perfectly fried snowflakes and cows, held in a hand made from tuna belly, even the fruit consists of 2 slices of watermelon and 2 slices of cantaloupe. The entire bento exudes a precious character from top to bottom. Although the weight is not too much, the price of this box of bento is at least 100 times higher than his fast egg sandwich. There's no exaggeration at all. Gudu. Meat. Careful calculation, it has been 4 days since he crossed over, and he hasn't even eaten meat in these 4 days. As for the onlookers who were not far away, they were all about to leave envious saliva. Fortunately, Beichuan always eats at a fast pace and only solved the bento in 2 minutes. Otherwise, the mops used for cleaning in the classroom would have been soaked through with the saliva of these guys. It's really a high-end bento. It's so delicious. After dinner, another cup of coffee made Beichuan Yu feel comfortable all over. The only downside is this coffee. How much milk and sugar did it add? It feels like it's almost a perfect match for me. Due to the temptation of delicious food, Beichuan Yu finally remembered Plateau Walking Beauty when the class bell rang after lunch break. Well, it's impossible to make this fool smarter overnight, so it's not a big deal to be a day late. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Was the first one he cheated on. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 was the first one he cheated on. Hello, Beichuan, are you going to the club together today? No, I have something else to do and I need to go home first. See you tomorrow, then. Well, see you tomorrow. I don't know if it's related to noon, but Yuki Kitagawa feels like the rest of the class, especially the boys, have become more enthusiastic about him. Can it be said that conquering beautiful women can really attract same-sex worship? Beichuan Yu felt very puzzled. However, although he enjoys being alone in his daily life, as a sophomore, he still has a club. And it's not a weird club, but a mainstream karate club that can be ranked among the top 3 most popular in any school. After all, the instructor of their karate club is a very authentic black belt for Dan. If you join a martial arts club where these masters sit outside of school, it will cost over 100,000 yen per month. Therefore, joining the club is equivalent to spending over 100,000 yen in vain every month. It was only after he joined the club that he realized that the mentor with a black belt of 4 would only come to the club for guidance once a week on average, not exceeding an hour at a time. So most of the time, the predecessor is stuck in place. Due to the large number of people in the karate club, it doesn't matter if he doesn't go on a regular basis. However, if I have to pick up Ania from school in the future, I'm afraid I won't have time to go to the club for free. Kitagawa Yoshi couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. About 15 minutes later, Yuki Kitagawa met Ania at the entrance of Shueimen Elementary School. Although summer has passed, at this time, the orange-red sunshine will still bring a lot of heat to the city. It will be a long time before the deep blue will appear in the sky, and the atmosphere of the time and space will become cooler. How was your day today? Beichuan Yu unbuttoned his collar, fanned the air, and asked. Although a look of disdain had already been seen on Anya's face, he still followed suit and asked a question. This will give Ania a chance to complain. Sure enough, Ania pouted and began pouring bitterness into him. This girl is too childish, that boy wanted to touch my corner and got punched by me, you can't eat snacks or read comics in class, why not stay at home for fun, and so on. Until they arrived at the shopping street, they didn't stop. There's no way, going to school is necessary, otherwise you won't even know how to read a clock or the amount of coins, and you'll become a fool that everyone despises. Ania blushed for a while and finally stopped roast. Is it okay for Anna to have hamburger chops for dinner? Why do you suddenly feel like eating hamburger steak? Because Huizi in class said that hamburger chops are delicious, but Anya hasn't tried them yet, so she wants to eat them. Okay then. Although he saved a lunch due to Fanio Ayako, with the addition of an Anya, their family's expenses increased from 3 meals a day to 5 meals a day. However, looking at Anya's hopeful gaze, he only hesitated for a moment before finally agreeing. Wow! That's great! Anya can also eat hamburger chops. Under the glow of the sunset, Anya's smile shone so brilliantly on the evening shopping street that Beichuan Yu unconsciously laughed along. Then Beichuan Yu purchased 10,000 yen of ingredients and snacks at the supermarket in one go. After making the payment, he brought the complimentary lottery ticket and arrived at the lottery area with Anya. Hello, Anya. Did you really hear that guy's voice just now, saying he was sticking the first prize card to the corner of the box lid? I just heard him say that. Okay, the first prize is a mountain bike worth 300,000 yuan. If we sell it, we can at least sell it for over 100,000 yuan, right? Beichuan, you didn't feel embarrassed about using Anya's mind-reading skills to make money, as it was the other party who cheated first. I want a lottery. A few minutes later, Yuki Kitagawa successfully won the first prize in the host's Sima-like expression. Then, when receiving the prize, he discussed with the staff and directly discounted the bicycle into a 200,000 yuan supermarket shopping cart. Now he and Anya don't have to worry about their food for the past month. If we save a province, it will be enough to eat for 2 months. Let's go. Let's go eat hamburger chops tonight. Yeah. Burger chops. Burger chops. Burger chops. First, he put 3 large bags of ingredients back into the kitchen of the coffee shop. Then, Yuki Kitagawa held hands with Anya and went to a nearby restaurant that had a good online review, but the price was slightly expensive. Anyway, it's just me and Anya, we shouldn't be able to eat much. Beichuan, you didn't really like eating French fries, so he only ordered a hamburger and a grilled wing. Anya's appetite wasn't very good either. A hamburger, a small potato, and a small cup of cola were already satisfied. Uni sauce, I think cola tastes better than coffee. How about we change the coffee in the store to cola, said Anya, who was eating with a greasy mouth. This guy really has the potential to be a dry girl. After coming into contact with cola, he immediately fell in love with this beverage. Please, the coffee shop doesn't sell coffee. Are you joking? If you want to drink cola, just wait until you go to the supermarket to buy it, really. But you're still young, you can't drink too much. You can only drink 1 bottle a week at most. Just now, Aniadon, who was still excited, was like a deflated ball, with an expression on his small face that was irresistible, almost making Kitagawa Yu burst out laughing. No. Beichuan Yu quickly turned his head and dared not look at Anya's emoji again. Just then, from another seat in the distance, a moderate sound of tapping the table suddenly caught his attention. Didn't I say so? Please don't bother me anymore. The familiar voice and tone, yes, are Hiroshi Shimajima and Bume Takayama. Compared to when he was in the classroom, Hiroshi Shimajima's volume was noticeably much higher, indicating that he was really impatient with the entanglement of Takashima Bume. I'm telling you exactly, what I like is Yanaga sauce. But we've been together since childhood. I'm sorry. We've never been together before. We're not childhood sweethearts either. Your family and mine just live on the same street, separated by 5, 6, 7, or 8 families. If these are all childhood sweethearts, then there are still several of my childhood sweethearts. So I'll tell you again. I won't like you such a fool. After speaking, Hiroshi Shimajima was too lazy to take a look at Bume Takahara anymore. He picked up his backpack and left. He also had to attend a tutoring class with Yashina Shimizu, but there was no time to waste here. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Because you are a good person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Because you are a good person. This is too tragic. Yuki Kitagawa couldn't help but express deep sympathy for Takayama Bume. Unfortunately, if you don't like it, you just don't like it. Why do you have to hang yourself from a tree? Takahara Bume is not bad in appearance and personality. Although her studies may be a bit lacking, is it important for her as a girl? If we change our target, there will probably be a lot of people willing to be her boyfriend and date her, right? Yuki Kitagawa is very puzzled about this. But that's not the point. The point is, it seems like we're taking action now. Pooh, it's a good opportunity to take action. Ania is still here. Just as Beichuan Yu hesitated a bit, it was a coincidence that Takao Bume also saw him. At the moment when the 4 eyes were facing each other, the air seemed to solidify, and then Plateau Bume's face turned red in an instant, eager to find a crack in the ground and hide. TSK, what's going on here? It's just being broken up by childhood sweethearts and being scolded as a fool, and then the whole process happens to be caught by all the classmates. Well, this is really quite social. If I break my mouth a bit, I'm afraid this news will spread throughout the school the next day, right? Beichuan couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. However, Takayama Bume seemed to have secretly learned Anya's mind-reading technique. As soon as the idea came to his mind, Takayama Bume stood up and walked towards him. That. You're a classmate from Beichuan in Housie's class, right? Ah-ha. I didn't expect my classmate from the plateau to know my name. Beichuan was really surprised, he wasn't a celebrity. Don't tell anyone about this. Plateau Bume blushed, gathered her courage, and looked straight at Beichuan. However, within 3 seconds, she had already defeated herself, tears streaming down her eyes and her tone becoming weak. Please. No. Please. How humble. Beichuan couldn't help but sigh, unable to match the usually carefree and boyish plateau walking beauty with the humble girl in front of him in the dust. Don't worry, I won't talk nonsense. Bume Takahara glanced at him again and finally felt relieved. Then I'll say goodbye first, said Takahara Bume, bowing 90 degrees before preparing to turn around and leave. But how could Beichuan let her just leave like this? But is this really good? What? Plateau Bume stopped and looked at him in confusion. Are you really willing to be rejected by someone you like, scolded as a fool, and even denied being a childhood sweetheart? Takahara Bume didn't originally want to talk to a stranger who only knew his name, Kitagawa Yoshi, about these things, but perhaps it was too uncomfortable to hold it in her heart alone. In the end, she couldn't help but say, so what can I do, Hiroshi? He likes smart girls. Then make yourself smarter, said Yuki Kitagawa, make your grades surpass Yoshinori Kayamizu, and even surpass Hiroshi Matsushima. Then he won't be able to call you a fool anymore, right? Otherwise, wouldn't he be even smarter than a fool? But I have also worked hard to study, but my grades just can't improve. Have you ever enrolled in a tutoring class or hired a tutor? No, there isn't. That's it. You haven't even attended a tutoring class, haven't even taken any classes, how can you be considered as having studied hard? How can you say that your grades just can't go? Takahara Bume looked at Kitagawa with a serious expression on her face and couldn't help but feel a bit confused for a moment. Is this logic like this? How do you feel strange? But I don't have the money to attend tutoring classes, said Plateau Bume weakly. If you don't have money to attend tutoring classes, do you still have money to spend here? Beichuan continued to retort rudely. As a result, before she could finish speaking, Bume on the plateau exclaimed in surprise and quickly ran back to her previous table to pick up the ticket. After seeing the amount on the receipt, the whole person seemed to have been completely petrified by lightning. Hiss. 18,770 yen. What did you eat? Beichuan walked over curiously and took a glance, then suddenly leaned back and couldn't help but take a cold breath. It's me, Housey, who's coming here. It's also my first time here. I didn't know how expensive things are here. Takashi Bume regained her senses and took out her wallet with a mournful expression. After counting the coins inside, she became even more desperate. So you ordered all these things, right? The pasta and cantaloupe juice in it were favored by Housey, and the rest were all ordered by me. Beichuan was directly amused by her. You're really rich. If you spend 2 more meals like this, won't you have enough money for this month's tutoring fee? Takahara Bume almost burst into tears upon hearing this. Coco, I don't have that much money with me. After speaking, Plateau Bume suddenly thought of something and looked at Beichuan like a homeless little black cat seeking help. Beichuan glanced at the amount of the small ticket and couldn't help but twitch at the corner of his mouth. However, for the sake of his next plan, he had to endure the pain and sacrifice his wallet. I can not only lend you money, but also help you with your homework. Ah. Don't be so surprised. Although my grades may not be as good as those of my classmate Jian Dao, they are also about the same as Yanaga Shimizu, much stronger than you. But why do classmates from Beichuan want to help me? Asked Gao Bume weakly. Why did you just beg me to lend you money? After careful consideration, Takao Bume said something that almost made Kitagawa take his breath away. Because I think Kitagawa is a good person. Did I get a good person card? Beichuan Yu gave her a bad look and snorted coldly, I'm not helping you for nothing. After a quick thought in his mind, Yuki Kitagawa continued, you need to come to my store every day after school and work for free on Saturdays and Sundays until you pay off the money you owe me and the tutoring fee. After listening, Takahara Bume was only stunned for a moment, and then agreed without hesitation. Don't you ask what my store is? Hey! What kind of store does the Beichuan classmates' family run? Custom store. Ah! Looking at the shocked expression on Takao Bume's face, Beichuan Yu, who was still worried about her wallet, finally couldn't help but laugh. Just kidding, it's a coffee shop, based on the principle of not wasting. Beichuan Yu pulled Ania, who had been eating melons all the way, together to help Plateau Bume solve her table of untouched food, and everyone unexpectedly overeated. When does tutoring start? Let's start from today. Beichuan Yu glanced at the time and said. Then the three of them returned to the coffee shop together. Yuanjia Coffee House. That's right, both this CAFA and the nearby Yuanjia Shrine are my family's businesses. Wow. So, is Beichuan the god of the shrine? It's so cool. Just a small shrine, come on in. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. I misunderstood you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. I misunderstood you. Dingling-lingling, with a crisp bell, the three of them entered the coffee shop. Yuki Kitagawa reached out and pressed the light switch, flipping the sign hanging at the door over to the side of business, and then brought Takahashi Bume to the back of the bar. As for Anya, she quickly ran to the bookshelf to pick up the manga she had just fallen in love with these past few days. Comics, magazines, novels. As a qualified coffee shop, these are obviously essential. Do you know how to make coffee? Behind the bar, Yuki Kitagawa brewed 2 cups of coffee for himself and Takashi Bume, and then poured Anya a cup of hot chocolate as he asked. Well, I don't seem to know much about it. Bume Takahara first observed his movements and then scratched her head with some embarrassment. Then you should be responsible for cleaning and serving meals on a regular basis. Okay. Do I need to change my work clothes? It's up to you. Our store's work clothes are which clothes? If you're willing, you can go to the dressing room over there to change. There are a few sets inside, which should have the size you're wearing. Before the words could be finished, Takahara Bume's eyes lit up and she rushed towards the changing room, which left Kitagawa Yoshitaka puzzled. Isn't it just boys who like this kind of witch costume, and even girls like it? A pure white top, a red hakama costume, and a red knot as an accessory. In a small changing room of less than 2 square meters, the high-altitude Bumeife has almost completed her cross-dressing. When she comes out again, she has already transformed into a cute appearance that catches the eye of Beichuan Yudu. How's it going? Does it look good? Plateau Bume stepped on specially made shoes that looked somewhat like wooden clogs, but because they had a soft rubber sole, they didn't make too much noise. She ran over and opened her arms, happily circling in front of Beichuan Yu. The naturally drooping hem of the hakama robe followed her movements, like a sleeping flower quietly blooming on the other side. Coupled with her clean and energetic smile like a child, Beichuan Yu couldn't help but stare blankly. It wasn't until Anya, who was not far away, ran over with his eyes lit up, holding peanuts and comics, and also clamoring to wear a witch costume, that he finally regained his senses. Sorry, there is no small witch dress you can wear in the store right now. Yuki Kitagawa first touched Anya's head, then turned around and looked back at Takashi Bume. It looks great, and this outfit also suits you very well. Kitagawa Yoshitaka sincerely praised him, while secretly disdaining the gaze of Hiroshi Shimajima. The beauty and temperament of high-altitude walking are not inferior to those of clear water and Yuna at all. As for the figure, it cannot be said that it is poor, but each has its own unique characteristics. Why do we have to sacrifice our proximity and pursue clear water and Yuna as a licking dog? Is the chest more attractive than the legs? Or is what cannot be said the best? Kitagawa Yoshi is really puzzled. If it were him, he would definitely choose Takahara Bume instead of Saizumi Yoshina. Thank you. It's the first time I've worn a witch costume. Takahara Bume turned around happily again and said with a smile, perhaps due to emotions such as excitement and happiness, her cheeks had a faint blush, making her look even more adorable. Alright, don't forget the main matter. Let's hurry up and catch up on tutoring while we don't have many guests right now. Yes. Beichuan classmate. No, it should be called, Beichuan teacher. Beichuan Yu silently rolled his eyes and walked towards the window seat, holding his coffee. By the way, where do you live, high-altitude student? Is it far from here? Just call me Bume directly, teacher Beichuan. My house lives on Lushan Shopping Street, and it only takes 15 minutes to walk there. Then you can just call me Beichuan, adding the suffix teacher sounds really strange. Also, the tutoring time should be at 10 o'clock, okay? I'll take you back then. No problem, but won't it be too troublesome? I can go back alone. It's okay, it's not troublesome. After all, you're a girl. It's still too dangerous to go home alone at night. Takahara Bume was taken aback at the words and looked at Kitagawa Yu, who had already sat down. Suddenly, she took a step back and a standard 90-degree bow startled Kitagawa Yu. I'm sorry. I misunderstood Mr. Beichuan. Ah, what does that mean? That's right. I used to think that you, Beichuan Jun, were a reclusive and difficult to get along with, a dead and strange person. Hee hee. Just like a person and don't like social life, will you be regarded as a dead house or a weirdo? This is really a neon sign, Beichuan you could not help but secretly roast. However, the predecessor was actually misunderstood. The predecessor, Guozhong, used to be quite outgoing, but later suddenly became isolated and, out of sync, just because he was worried about the deteriorating operation of the coffee shop every day, not because he really didn't like socializing. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours passed quickly. Just like a few days ago, this cafe in the alley didn't even have a single customer for the whole night, so Bume Takahara's work uniform was basically a waste. That's it for today. I almost understand your situation. Beichuan stretched lazily for a long time, glanced at the nearby phone, and spoke up. The tutoring time was not as agonizing as imagined, but rather passed quickly. Takahara Bume may not be very intelligent, but her foundation is unexpected and she plays quite firmly. It seems that she has indeed worked very hard to learn before. So what she lacks is just proficiency in applying these formulas and theorems. After 3 hours of investigation that night, Yuki Kitagawa already knew how to help her. Brush questions. Yes, it's just practicing questions. For now, if you want to improve your grades quickly, you only need to do a lot of practicing and lecturing. There is still 1.5 months left until the next monthly exam. We will go tomorrow and retrieve all the test papers from previous exams of the same period, which should be saved in this reference room. Under the starry night sky, high-altitude Bume held her backpack in both hands and turned her head to look at Beichuan Yu, who was still planning her tutoring plan. The suppressed depression and sadness in her heart suddenly seemed to dissipate a lot. So, is Beichuan Jun so talkative? Why is he always alone in his daily life? Takahashi Bume was secretly curious. Because Hiroshi Kitagawa has been in the same class as Hiroshi Majima since first grade, she still knows a little about Hiroshi Kitagawa. However, what happened today undoubtedly shattered her previous impression of Hiroshi Kitagawa. But Beichuan Jun is so serious, I also need to be more serious and angry. Bume Takahara silently cheered herself on. I'm home now. Well, then I'll go back. Wait a minute. What's wrong? You haven't given me your contact information yet. Oh, I almost forgot if you didn't say it. They added their phones and line numbers to each other, and then Yuki Kitagawa waved his hand and turned around to quickly blend into the night. New book set sale, seeking recommendations, collecting, and following up on reading, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Eating melons is indeed human nature. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Eating melons is indeed human nature. Hey, Bume, what's the situation with you and that neighboring class's Beichuan Yu? Yeah, right, Bume, are you dating that Kitagawa Yu? He's a lonely and eccentric person. Perhaps it was because someone caught me going to the reference room together during break time and then returning home together after school. Just on the third day of the tutoring plan, rumors about the relationship between Yuki Kitagawa and Bume Takahara had already spread on a small scale. Originally thinking it was just a prank, the two friends of Plateau Bume couldn't help but surround her. Beichuan Jun is not a weirdo. He just prefers quiet solitude, said Takashi Bume with a slight frown and a hint of anger as she defended Beichuan Yu. However, her reaction instead made her two friends look at each other and instantly become excited. Have you already used the intimate title of Beichuan Jun? So you and him are. We are just friends who happen to go to tutoring class together, Takahara Bume whispered. Of course, this is the excuse given to her by Yoshiyuki Kitagawa. After all, Yoshiyuki Kitagawa doesn't want any rumors to spread about her relationship with Bume Takahara in school. But when it comes to Plateau Bume, who is not good at lying, it's almost like there is no silver in this place, 300 taels. Especially in the face of the teasing gazes from her two friends, Gal Bume's anxious face turned red, which couldn't help but make people daydream even more. So we went to cram school together, Frenda deliberately dragged the ending. I said Bume, why are you doing exercises whenever you have time these days? Friend B also agreed. Although the academic performance of students from Beichuan is not as good as those from Jiandao, and they have some unique personalities, they are still quite handsome and match well with Bume Jiang. Takahara Bume wanted to defend herself, but then her friend B continued, but I heard that the first-grade elf princess has been delivering bento boxes to her classmates in Beichuan every noon recently. Hey! Is there anything else like this? Eating melons is indeed human nature, and upon hearing this, Takahara Bume immediately forgot about her defense, with a curious expression on her face. I've heard about this too. And the gift was a very high-end bento. Friend they also spoke up. Do you think Fanio is also interested in Beichuan? This is impossible, isn't it? After all, Fanio has even rejected third-grade senior Ito. But Kitagawa Junchang is not inferior to Ito Junchang. Friend A and Friend B looked at each other again, with a, as expected, expression on their faces. It seems that our Bume sauce has really moved on to another relationship, but that's also good. What's so remarkable about Hiroshi Shimajima? He always has a stinky face, so if it were me, I would have slapped him twice and let him go. But Bume sauce seems to have stronger competitors this time. It's okay, isn't there a saying that goes near the water tower, you get the moon first? Our two classes are neighbors, and Bume and her classmates from Beichuan also attend the same tutoring class. By the way, the next physical education class will be our two classes together. Right, and with the help of the two of us, even a fool like Bume can definitely defeat a goddess like Fanio. I'm going to ignite everything you said. For the sake of not giving in, beauty is once again heartbroken. To safeguard world peace. The Plateau Bume on the side had already opened her mouth again and again, but the conversation speed between friend A and friend B was too fast, giving her no room to interrupt. By the time she could finally interrupt, she had already forgotten what she wanted to say. It wasn't until her two friends pulled her left and right towards the outside of the classroom that she finally regained her senses. "Stupid Bume, why are you still stunned? Hurry up and change your gymnastics clothes." "I'm not a fool." When walking on the plateau, my anger increased, and after breaking free, I got into a fight with two friends. Although I can't say that I'm my two good friends on my lips, if I compare my strength, even a boy, 99% cannot compare to her. Stupid Bume. You weird girl. Let go quickly. My waist is almost broken. Give it to death. The sound of cicadas is like rain. Although it has already entered September, it is unknown whether it is due to abnormal weather conditions. Today's outdoor temperature is still as high as 30 degrees Celsius, which has brought bad luck to all classes attending outdoor classes. Beichuan, are you okay? There are still the last few left. No problem, leave it to me. Let's go change our clothes and have dinner first. Okay, Beichuan Yu politely declined the help of the classmate who had not spoken a word throughout the previous academic year, and pushed the last basket of basketball towards the sports equipment warehouse next to the playground. After just playing basketball for a class, his clothes were already wet and dry with sweat, sticky and uncomfortable to the touch. So he plans to put the basketball away as quickly as possible, then go change clothes first, and then buy a bottle of happy water from the vending machine. But just as he pushed the cart deep into the warehouse where it should have been parked, there was a sudden crash sound of the rolling shutter door falling from behind. The entire warehouse was instantly completely plunged into darkness. What's the situation? A prank? Campus bullying? Beichuan Yu turned around and showed a guarded posture, his eyebrows unconsciously twisted into a ball. It's not his fault for thinking too much. Who made the newly recognized school flower, Fanio Ayako, as she said the day before yesterday, come over every noon to deliver lunch to him? The most crucial thing is that no matter how Beichuan Yu asks her, she refuses to reveal the reason behind it, which will definitely make everyone think more. For this reason, God knows how many boys have been watching him grit their teeth from behind these days, which is not pleasing. At least one of them must be Ito Kiyoshi, who was publicly rejected by Ayako Tori on Monday morning in 3rd grade. Yesterday afternoon when school was over, he ran into Ito Jiming at the staircase, and this guy showed him a face without any hesitation. However, soon Beichuan Yu realized that he seemed to have guessed wrong. Before his eyes could fully adapt to the darkness, the lights in the warehouse suddenly lit up, and then an unexpected figure appeared in his sight. Bume. What are you doing? Kitagawa Yoshitaka looked at Takahara Bume standing at the door with a puzzled expression on her face. Just now, they had a physical education class together, so he saw firsthand how amazing the amount of high-altitude walking was. At this moment, Plateau Bume was soaked in sweat all over her body, and her gymnastic suit was tightly pressed against her body, highlighting her tall and tight body curves. Not to mention, she looked quite tempting. And it's a bit different from what he thought. Although the dimensions on the chest of Plateau Bume are not as amazing as Chinshui Yuna, they are still quite predictable, at least above the average level. Of course, Beichuan Yu is just a pure appreciation, without any unnecessary thoughts. Not to mention that he and Takahara Bume have only known each other for less than 3 days, Takahara Bume still has her childhood sweetheart in her heart. Using Galgame as an analogy, the events accumulated between him and Bume Takahara are not enough to trigger a plot like a sports warehouse. That. Beichuan Jun, I'm sorry. After hesitating for a moment, Takahara Bume made a standard 90-degree bow and completely stunned Kitagawa Yoshi. What's the situation? What have you done to apologize to me again? Beichuan Yu instinctively blurted out, only to realize that there seemed to be some wording issues after speaking, and quickly said, I mean, you and what did you do? Beichuan Yu is really puzzled. On the other side, after listening to the music, Plateau Bume's cheeks turned red, her eyes flickered, her hands were backed behind her, and her body involuntarily turned left and right. This twisted and twisted appearance made him unable to resist a question mark. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fortunately, it's the lawn. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Fortunately, it's the lawn, it's like this. It's all because of me, causing EP1-10 to be misunderstood by everyone. If it affects your relationship with EP1-10 and Fanio classmate, then I will be the culprit. What? What does it mean to be misunderstood by everyone because of you? And what is the relationship between me and my classmate Fanio? At first, Yuki Kitagawa was still confused, but then he roughly understood the meaning of plateau walking. The person who misunderstood should be you, me. Plateau Bume tilted her head and looked puzzled. I have nothing to do with my classmate Fanio, at least not yet. As for the matter of her delivering me a bento, to be honest, I am also very strange and don't understand. Anyway, it seems that she is not pursuing me. As for my relationship with Bume, we are just classmates attending tutoring classes together, aren't we? They can pass it as well as they want, I really don't care at all. Ah ha. Plateau Bume blinked, is that so? That's it. Ha, then I can rest assured. Plateau Bume patted her chest with a long sigh of relief, and her face suddenly regained its usual clean and cheerful smile. Under the light of the electric light, her smile was somewhat dazzling, making EP1-10 unconsciously shift his gaze away. Alright, let's go out. By the way, why did you come here to find me? You closed the door. Hee, I'm afraid of being seen by others and causing misunderstandings. If I sneak over and close the door again, others won't be able to see me. You're really a genius, hey. Really. Watching Takashi Bume turn her teasing into praise, Kitagawa Yoshitaka shook her head in tears and laughter. However, when he walked up to Bume on the plateau and crouched down to pull the door back up, his smile suddenly froze on his face. What's wrong? EP1-10, you shouldn't be unable to pull it, right? Look at me. In our school's wrist wrestling competition during junior high school, I always ranked first. Even boys couldn't compare to me. As she spoke, Takahara Bume squatted down triumphantly, grabbing the handle that Kitagawa Yu had already released, and forcefully lifted it up. However, the rolling shutter door made a light click sound, only shaking for a moment, without any intention of being pulled open. Ah, why is this door locked? This door seems to be the kind that locks when it falls, and requires a key to open it from inside. After realizing it later, EP1-10 recalled the reminder from the sports commissioner. He had never helped move physical education equipment before, so it's understandable that he forgot. But it seems like she's from the track and field department, right? EP1-10 turned his head suspiciously to look at the plateau Bume. Takahara Bume was very clever this time, and immediately guessed the meaning in Kitagawa Yu's eyes. She quickly said, I'm a sprinter and don't need to come to the warehouse to move equipment. Why don't we call someone to help, suggested Takahashi Bume. Please, we have physical education class and are wearing gymnastics suits. We haven't even had time to change clothes yet. Where did you get your phone? That's it too. Plateau Bume showed a regretful expression. If I had known earlier, I would have changed my clothes before coming over. Are you planning to lock us inside after trying again? EP1-10 rolled his eyes in frustration, surveyed the layout of the warehouse, and quickly pushed a jumping box to the front door. What are you doing? Plateau Bume asked curiously. There is a skylight over there. Let me check if anyone is coming on the playground outside. If anyone is there, we can smash the door and make a noise to attract them. But what if there's no one around? If there's no one around, then we can only wait. Kitagawa Yoshitaka sighed helplessly and casually closed the system panel. He has just questioned the system, and it takes 8 points of wishful thinking to exchange the unlocking skills that can open the warehouse door. Even if he adds a lot of additional conditions, such as cooling time of 1 month, it can only be reduced to 4 points. His 3 wishes are not enough. Unless he is willing to exchange the 1-time unlocking ability, in that case, only a little effort will be enough. But this is too luxurious, isn't it? Let's wait and see. Fortunately, the warehouse itself is not very tall, and his height is not too short. Stepping on the box of the jumping horse can just make the part above the mouth exceed the height of the skylight, and you can see the situation outside. However, it's lunchtime now, and everyone is either in the classroom or in the cafeteria. Who would run to the playground on a hot day? 5 minutes passed quickly, and there was not even a ghost on the playground. On the contrary, Beichuanyu had been tightening his body in his long neck, causing his legs to ache. More importantly, the warehouse is not cool at all, but rather hotter than outside due to the continuous grilling from the sun and lack of air circulation. Oh no, I'm afraid I'll get heatstroke if it continues like this. Beichuanyu licked his dehydrated and cracked lips, feeling anxious in his heart. However, before he could come up with a solution, a sudden thud came from behind. Takahara Bume sat down on the ground, pulling on her white T-shirt with one hand and weakly fanning the wind with the other, revealing a smooth belly and vest line without any excess fat. Her eyes seemed to be a bit loose. Damn it, isn't her physique very good? I haven't even suffered from heatstroke yet, why did she suffer from heatstroke first? Beichuanyu felt both restless and anxious in his heart. He quickly jumped off the box and ran to the side of Takahara Bume, but what could he do next? He can't do anything in this situation. Ha! How did you come down, Beichuan-jun? Did someone come over? Meet Yuki Kitagawa didn't know how to answer for a while. Is there no one there? Bume Takahara seemed to see something from his expression, her eyes darkened, and she suddenly burst into tears. We shouldn't be dying here, right? Lord Beichuan, shouldn't we be dying here? It's hard to imagine that high-altitude Bume, who is usually boyish and cheerful, would burst into tears. It seems that she has really suffered from heatstroke, and her brain is starting to burn out. She will really be in danger of her life if this continues. Beichuanyu knew he couldn't delay or hesitate any longer. He immediately opened the system panel, used a little of his only 3 wishes, and successfully opened the door of the warehouse. Look at Bume, the door is open. Let's go out quickly, Yoshimasa Kitagawa shouted with a cheerful expression. Takahara Bume heard the sound, but did not look towards the direction of the already opened door. Instead, she looked at him with dilated pupils, clearly not hearing clearly or unable to understand what he was saying. Helpless, Beichuanyu could only effortlessly pick up the high-altitude Bume and run quickly towards the outside of the warehouse. There's no other way, the power of wish is only 2 points left. The wish to achieve plateau beauty is still a bit far-fetched, and he really doesn't want to waste the power of his wish on such things. However, although the weight of plateau Bume is not very heavy, it is still around 90 pounds. If it were normal, he might have been fine, but now he has just played basketball for the whole class and has been locked up in the warehouse like steam for more than 10 minutes, and his own condition is also extremely poor. The consequence was that he had just run out for less than 10 meters when suddenly his eyes turned black and he threw himself directly onto the soft lawn. Fortunately, it's the lawn. This is the last instinctive thought that Yuki Kitagawa had before losing consciousness. End of this chapter.